Welcome everyone. Today we have a special line by line podcast 100. So we have a small anniversary today, and our special guest today is Kara Nodrik. We will be analyzing a song "Who Lives, Who Dies, Who Tells Your Story" by Lin-Manuel Miranda that he wrote for his Broadway story Hamilton. So Kara is the first time on this podcast as a guest. So Kara, can you tell us a little bit about yourself before we start with the song? I know that you have an amazing podcast, and tell us a little bit about it and about yourself, what you're doing.
Well, lately I'm a YouTuber, but I am so many other things as well in real life. But in the realm of the internet, I'm a YouTuber with special direction that all my creative work is aiming at. It's humanity, friendship, appreciating time and nature. My podcast Line by Line is sponsored by Free Time, and time is very important for me. It's currency of life. It's the only thing that we have that we can give to a valuable cause. Yeah.
And everyone can give it, right? So that's something that we all have in limited amounts, but still we all have it. Okay, today we are analyzing a very interesting song that you have picked. Can you tell us a little bit about this song and why you picked it?
So I'm a huge fan of Lin-Manuel Miranda. He wrote this musical about U.S. Treasury Secretary, the first U.S. Treasury Secretary, Alexander Hamilton, and everybody was like, "No, that can't be a musical." And he said, "No, it will be, and it will be the best. Like, try it." And so he did it. I love musicals. I love stories, and that's exactly what he put in there. That idea, and also today is Lin-Manuel Miranda birthday.
Today, what Kara meant today when we are recording it.
Exactly. So we are recording on the 16th of January, and Lin-Manuel has a birthday today. Happy birthday. We will premiere this episode on the 20th of January, exactly when it would be 8th anniversary of the premiere, Hamilton on Broadway. So, yeah, that story is absolutely inspiring. It talks about a life journey of an orphan, an immigrant who came to US, and I think he came to US in 1776. He came to New York City, and he made friends, actually. Alan Burr, the opening is with Alan Burr, also one of the founding fathers. Yeah, his life is a living testimony of this following the American dream. One person can change the world, provided friends, circumstances, but still, like, even if you are an orphan, if you have nothing, you can still do it. So yeah, that's why I chose it.
So I have heard one historian talking about Hamilton, and he said that was a young man who was always pressed on time. He behaved like he was pressed on time. There is an interesting fact that we actually don't know what year he was born, because there are contradiction facts about that. So at what age he actually came at New York? At 17 or 15 or when? So, and nevertheless, he was super young and he wants to cover everything very fast, including education. But he was targeting a high education at New York University. So this is a story that we used to read in books, but how it put in this specific song, this is a small piece of it, but in a musical itself, it's in a way, it's not a romantic story, it's not just a historian story, it's not just some adventure, it's everything all together, and it is in a story form, in a song format. So what how you why do you like stories that are made as a musical? Why this message is more appealing for you?
First of all, I really relate to his obsession with time. I understand why it happened to him, and also uh, my mom called me Alexandra. She renamed me, like, not in documents, but she just decided that you're Alexandra, and she kept calling me that. And I also am an immigrant as well, but although I don't have the same tragic story as Alexander Hamilton, he grew up without a father, and his mom died when he was 12. Like, still we don't know when he was born. He might, some sources say he was born in 1755, some say 1757. Like, the age is not exactly clear, but yeah, so he was by his mom's bed, and she was always repeating, I'm running out of time. There are so many things I could have achieved. I'm running out of time. And so he carried that. He was like, every second you leave, you make count. Yeah. So that's why it is so appealing to me. That's the message, kind of.
What about the song part of that, musical part of that? Why
Music.
music plays big role here?
That's how I met the story. Basically, I usually do not go and read books about U.S. Treasury secretaries. It's just like not my thing. But I do love seeing people perform on stage. I appreciate it. I appreciate this whole play, and like it seems like time travel. It seems like people put an effort into relating a story, telling a story. So it's like the story that is acted out. Yeah, spoon fed to the viewer, let's say.
And yeah, so for me, for me, it's easier to read than to listen to for the musical. That's why I'm wondering about that. And it looks like that for you, that message, when it is inside the music, inside the song, first of all, it is more accessible for you, and maybe not just for you, for everyone, and also it creates a big impact.
Yeah, the message said in a repetitive tone resonates easier with me because it keeps replaying in my head. If I read it in a book, I do not keep it replaying in my head. But if it's a song, like, I will not throw away my shot. I will not throw away my shot. And like, I'm just like country, like this, that heartbeat in it. I don't know. It's just easier digestible for me somehow.
Very interesting that you find it um, more appropriate to expose yourself to history in this way. And it's probably how we should teach history, at least to kids, because it gives not just facts, but also personality, emotion. And that's how we remember it best. And it's a good teaching approach.
I, I think we are all different. Like, we have different ways of learning. And there are some kids who learn like me through music, but there are kids who learn through reading. And it's just there should be a way to educate kids depending on their personal preferences. But it is good actually also to expand your skills in other areas, right? Like if I personally prefer to easier learning while listening it sung to me, like if somebody would sing to me a boring book, I would like it more. I would find it less boring. but that should not that normal way of learning, I call it the boring one, should also be practiced. Otherwise kids will be used to having everything tailored to their needs, and they will not come out of their comfort zones. So for me, learning in a normal way was actually a struggle. I had to come out of my comfort zone, which was music. Yeah.
Speaking about music, so let's dive into our song. If you don't mind, I will start. So the song that we are analyzing today is written in terms of dialogue, not even dialogue, there are multiple people interacting. So the first speaker, I would say, or singer, is a President Washington. Who do not know, President Washington is one of the founding fathers of the US. So President Washington, let me tell you what I wish I would know. When I was young and dreamed of glory, you have no control. Who lives, who dies, who tells your story. So those were words of wisdom from an older friend for Hamilton.
Yeah.
And that speaks about the fact that the person who is older, he has wisdom, but he doesn't have time. And that's exactly at that moment of life of Hamilton's life, he still have time, but he had some wisdom. That's what we will learn from the story, follow-up story. But Washington, as his older mentor, friend, and actually probably a good friend, they met. I think they met in army.
Yeah.
So he has something to share, and he has something to give to Hamilton. And for some reason, he believed that that's, at least author of the song believes that that's something that Washington gives to Hamilton. Patience, be more certain in what you're doing. Think I'm not about future. That's actually part of dreaming about the glory.
Yeah.
Just think more. Think how you can not just went toward that goal, but also how you can increase control over the situation.
So, I think he was even more than a friend. He was a father figure to Hamilton.
Hamilton was super young when he joined army.
Yeah.
In our current how we understand army right now, probably at that century it was okay, but from our perspective, he was super young.
So George Washington could see him as a kind of as a person to mentor, to take under his wing.
And probably from the beginning he saw something important that yes, he can bring to the new country that about to born.
And I like it what he tells, how he starts as a father figure, as a teacher. Let me tell you what I wish I had known when I was young, basically. He tells, when I was your age and dreamed of glory. And the lesson is you have no control. Who lives, who dies, who tells your story. You have no control over it.
So when I'm reading that, I'm also having this understanding that maybe it wasn't part of the idea of the authors, but that's what I read between lines, that when
We are all about projections. So
when you're young, yes, when you're young and you do not control anything actually, and that's you need to understand that, and you need to behave understanding that your today's is your past tomorrow, meaning that whatever you're doing today, that will impact other people's life, other people death, and how your story will be told. It's exactly happening today and right now, and you need to understand that.
yeah. So basically, carpe diem.
And be responsible. That's what I want to add. Yeah.
Yeah. Next line. President Jefferson. I'll give him this. His financial system is a work of genius. Couldn't I do it if I tried? And I tried. I don't have much to project in here. It's just
Well, this is another wise mentor who has apparently knowledge and who become president eventually. And he praised his ability to understand. Actually, what they created in US was almost completely new. There are some resemblance with Greek and Roman Empire, but not just to some extent, just maybe names and some other elements. But financial system, all of that was created from scratch. So yeah, that's a good grade from another mentor.
yeah, and just like one detail to add here. President Jefferson became US president in 1801, 3 years before Alexander Hamilton's death. So, but they already knew each other before.
Well, they all founding fathers. They worked on developing the system together.
Yeah. Like I heard they had a lot of internal fights, and yet Alexander was so fiery and passionate that he kind of convinced everybody about his way of seeing things.
Well, there were three states, state departments, all four. I do not remember exactly. Write in a comment if I'm wrong, and make sure you point out that I was wrong. So, state of Department of States, Department of War, and Department of Treasure. So Department of War, okay, it was a war going on, and everybody was in a war, so it was somewhat we understand. And that's a fact about Washington and Hamilton. Hamilton helped with war in a way how to manage it as well. So that's why how Washington saw his managing and abilities to be a person who can create things. Department of State, it's something also new, but well, it's like department that oversees all different territories. For larger companies like Great Britain at that moment, it was something that has existed before. In some extent, to some extent, not exactly that, but still. But Department of Treasure, while every country had it, those guys, they were creating it from scratch, and they were creating something. They were all different models how they can do that, and how they end up doing that. That's how we live and see it. Okay, it's not exactly that, but still, it was completely new, and they require innovative approaches because they are far from their metropolis. They are in a big land, a huge land, and they all came there. There are a lot of opportunities, but also a lot of barriers, and how to make it work. And based on that, the President Madison, his line is next, and he continues discussing Hamilton's capabilities when on his post as a head of a Department of Treasury. He took our country from bankruptcy to prosperity. I hate to admit it, but he doesn't get enough credit for all the credit he gave us. So President Madison, he became president probably after his death already. Again, check me and
Yes,
please
yes, he
let
does.
us know.
President Madison went after, like, Hamilton died while President Jefferson was, yes.
So still, when President Madison took over, and that's I think what this line is about. His work was much easier because Hamilton was head of the Department of Treasury before that, stating how he changed the country and how he changed the future of the country as well.
Yes, I just fact checked it. President Madison took over after Jefferson in 1809. And then after he took it, President Jefferson was trying to undo it. But President Madison, when he took over, he was like, "Oh my God, work of Alexander Hamilton is amazing. He was visionary. He was genius, and like he could see the better future." I really like it. So President Madison was a big fan, basically. Yeah. Yeah, that those parts about presidents honoring the work of Alexander Hamilton is really touching to me, because Alexander Hamilton could not be the president because he wasn't born in US. He was born in Charleston. Yeah, and yet all the first presidents, they admire
his contribution to the country. Yeah.
So interesting how one orphan could achieve so much. It's like always amazing. And like the only thing you actually do, you have to appreciate your time and to invest your time into changing the system, changing everything. Amazing. Running out of time. That's interesting. Angelica. Every other founding father story gets told. Every other founding father gets to grow old. So Angelica was Eliza's sister.
Who is Eliza?
And Eliza is Alexander Hamilton's wife. They met, I think, in 1780. And there is this like beautiful song about three sisters, Angelica, Eliza, and Peggy. And everybody like disregards Peggy, but it's those two sisters, Angelica and Eliza, are like really close, best friends. And they meet Alexander Hamilton at some ball and some beautiful event. And both of them fall for him. But Angelica kind of gives her spot to Eliza, and Eliza eventually marries Alexander. But Angelica is in their life as a friend, support, and somebody who kind of keeps the fire going. Yeah. And she helps Eliza later on. And here she's entering the song with that every other founding father, like she's pumping up everybody to give credit to Alexander.
And we will know soon why. If you don't know yet, but soon we will know it.
Yeah, I think we can reveal it. Alexander Hamilton gets killed at the age of 49 on a duel with Alan Burr. We don't know if he was 49 though, because we still don't know when Alexander Hamilton was born, but he gets killed in 1804. In a kind of drunk brawl duel disagreement with Alexander Burr, who is also one of the founding fathers and one of like actually close friends. I know they were portrayed as rivals, but other sources say that those two guys were actually buddies.
So now Burr is entering the story. Burr. But when you are gone, who remembers your name? Who keeps your flame? Who tells your story? So now we already discussed that Alexander was killed, but now we are getting into the fact that someone should die, someone will die soon, and the question here is how we can continue the legacy of the person that we just introduced, the person who did so much for the country, who helped to establish the country from the very beginning without actually hopes to become a president. So Burr raises this question.
And the ironic thing, right? Like Alexander's story gets told, his name lives on. I don't think Alan Burr is even on any US currency. So I know Alexander Hamilton is on a $10 bill, but nobody actually knows about Alan Burr. His story wasn't told that much.
His story is a part of story of Alexander Hamilton now, at least now.
At least now. So he's the most famous for shooting. It's horrible. Like can you imagine being in history as the guy who shot somebody else? Even though you tried, you lived your life. Alan Burr. So in the musical, he's portrayed. There is this very famous piece called My Shot from Hamilton. And it starts like this: 1776, New York City. And then Alexander enters the pub and he's like seeing a guy on a table and he's like, "Pardon me, are you Alan Burr, sir?" And he said, "That depends." and Alexander introduces himself and he tells, I have all those ideas, I want to share it with you. And he's like, "Oh, let me buy you a drink. Hold your horses. If you keep out of trouble, you double your choices." And it's just like, it's amazing how much in there you could kind of feel the very careful actions of Aaron Burr. And yeah, so basically, who lives, who dies, who tells your story. When he says it, his story got told precisely through the frame of in the shadow of Alexander Hamilton's life. That's because he was too careful and like eventually he was the one who shot him, which is like amazing to me.
So next, we are starting to getting answer about who tells your story. Time for our next speaker or participant of this monologue, not monologue. When many people are talking, discussion. Yeah. Kara, would you mind reading for Eliza?
And then Eliza answers, "I put myself back in the narrative. I stop wasting time on tears. I live another 50 years. It's not enough."
So now we got Eliza introduced. So she overlived Alexander Hamilton for 50 years. um, she will be telling his story. So let's dive into it and see what she will tell us about it. Eliza, I interviewed every soldier who fought by your side. She tells the story of those soldiers. Eliza, I tried to make sense of your thousands of pages of writings. You really do write like you're running out of time. Now we're starting getting this notion, not notion, but introduction in the Hamilton personality about him running, always running to achieve more and more.
Yeah.
And even if he hasn't lived long enough, he has a lot of notes, comments, a lot of ideas probably that we will never see implemented. But still we learn about that through Eliza.
And that's the thing, right? If you have somebody by your side who believes in you, so Eliza was his biggest fan, basically. Like everybody was taken by Alexander Hamilton, but Eliza, she could dedicate her entire life, like all those 50 years, she dedicated to his name. And it's not like they were married for a short time. They were married, if I'm not mistaken, in December 1780, and he was married to Eliza up until his death, so for 24 years. And after his death, she completely gave herself to his story, to continuing his legacy. So she was doing all of those amazing things in his name. And the inspiration she took from his thousands of pages that he was writing like a madman, and like, here's the idea, and then he was writing, and she did that. So she interviews every soldier who fought by his side. She told the story of them. She was completely obsessed with continuing the name and the legacy. I admire that type of dedication. I really admire, although I do think it's rare nowadays that somebody would do such a thing for somebody else. Like, yeah. That's to me a testimony of the ultimate love that a person can give to somebody. It's like, yeah. What do you think?
Well, we will learn a little bit more about the relationship and how what legacy they left, both of them together. I don't know much historically about Eliza and their relationship. I only know so much, and but even if they were not for a long time together, I don't know when they met and when they start relationship. But looks like not for a long time. They did have a few kids, and I suspect that some of them were adopted kids, just because based on year of birth of those kids. So that's something that would be interesting. I would be interesting to explore. But that tells us, and those kids, they continue living and be supported by mom, Eliza, and continue the story of Alexander Hamilton together with Eliza. That's how we know a lot of elements, because one of his sons was actually his biographer.
It's excellent. So so what do you think about that idea, Ian? How you create those partnership and relationships during your life while you still have time, so that after you're gone, your legacy continues. Just like abstracting from the historical evidence in the relationship of Eliza and Alexander.
So this is just pure view of the person who is married to science. So when you, so those relationships, they help you to grow, they help you to establish yourself, but also they help you to create kids. And creating kids, it's like traveling in the future. You are making sure that you live after that, because someone remembers you and someone's thinking about you, and that's how you live. You live in others' memories. This is how you live forever. If you do a good job, like Washington said in the beginning, you don't know, you cannot control it. You cannot control who will tell your story, but you can live your life. I think that's what he implied. You can try to live your life in such a way that whoever is telling your story, that story will never end, and that story is good. So that's what we see here. How much of that is true? I do not know. But from the story perspective, not history perspective, that's the story that has been told here. This is something that people need to believe that is possible. People need to wish for that to happen. Like we, when we were small girls, we were watching all these movies about princesses. We were waiting for the prince on the white horse. That's how it's in our culture was said.
We both know grew up and like, nah.
still, that's one of the story that when you hear as a child, as a young girl, it teaches you how to build your life, how to build your relationship from the beginning. This should be a dream of every person, not just girls.
Inspiration, a story to look up to, that ideal, that type of relationship where you understand that the union of the two of you is something that changes the world. And one of you is gone, the other person continues the legacy. That's amazing. So Alexandra did so much, and she as well after that continued in his name, inspired by his writing.
I actually really like that in this particular story, in this song, we are told a lot about Alexander, what he did, allegedly, how good he was. We have a very beautiful picture of the human as human. That's how we should remember that. That's how we should think about that. But that's not all. We're also getting a story of Eliza and how much she did, and how much, even though she follows his footsteps and she tries to follow his values, but probably the reason why they're together because they have similar values. And what she did is not because Alexander was believing in that, because she also believed in that and wants all of that to happen. And just because she wasn't, she was granted that time, extra 50 years, she was able to do that.
Yeah. Eliza continues. I rely on Angelica. While she's alive, we tell your story. She's buried in the Trinity Church near you. When I needed her most, she was right on time.
Honestly, I think I like this the most out of the whole song. The whole song gives so many lessons, teach us how to be a good person, how to build your life, how to be a good friend, how to be good mentor, how to be a good couple, how to build relationship. But this one tells about the relationship between two sisters. Yeah, we do not see it very often from those times. It doesn't mean it didn't exist. It existed. Sisters carried out world on their shoulders all the time. And the fact that it discussed here from this perspective and it mentioned the help Angelica provided, and not just help, she was always there. She was always helping.
She was
That's amazing.
always right on time, like really. It's like she was the shoulder to cry on when Alexander was not there. Yeah, that's like, it's amazing that love between sisters, between friends. It's something to look up to, something to strive for. That's also my favorite part, by the way. Yeah.
Eliza continues. And I'm still not through. I ask myself, what would you do if you had more time? The Lord, in His kindness, He gives me what you always wanted. He gives me more time. I raised funds in DC for the Washington Monument. And Washington replies, she tells my story. So we now start seeing exact deeds that Eliza did. Apart from trying to understand his legacy, she not just understood it, she also tried to implement it.
Yeah, and so Washington was this father figure for Alexander Hamilton, and Eliza raised money in Washington, D.C. to raise the Washington Monument, which is like still one of the biggest landmarks in Washington. Eliza did it, guys, if nobody
Well,
knows.
I do not exactly, maybe this is a part of the story, but let's follow the story, not
Yes,
history.
check out the
Yes,
historical facts, but according to Lin-Manuel Miranda's story, she did it, and I believe Lin, because he's a
yeah, but
musician. I do
you
believe
guys checked us
musicians.
and let us know. Let us know.
Yes. Yeah, so Washington DC Monument, Eliza was the one who did it. Wife of Alexander Hamilton. Ah,
And also here we get this precise, exact discussion on how important time is. And that's something that we all have a lot, but it's a lot when we are young and when we do not have enough wisdom, or we do not have enough friends, or we do not have enough uh, relationship with necessary people. We are not in the right place yet. So that time, whenever you got into the right place with the right tools, with the right people, that time will run out very fast.
yeah, by the point in your life in which you actually appreciate the right people in your life, which when you actually understand those are the people I give my time to, because they're the ones, like, I don't have much time, but those are the people I will give my free time to. Usually you don't have much time left, unfortunately. And yeah, Eliza, I speak out against slavery. You could have done so much more if you had more time. And when my time is up, have I done enough? Will they tell our story? It's like comes secondary to her, our story, but still. I think what Lynn did for Eliza is actually very important. He actually told her story too. She's amazing. And
To the public,
Angelica's.
yes, to the public, to everyone. People like me, who is not familiar with US history, but you guys know, so please let us know again with more details
Guys,
about that part of US history.
I'm honestly, I'm an immigrant in Poland and I'm taken by that story. It's amazing. It's beautifully written and it's beautifully sung. I know some of you told me that Puerto Rico is not really technically considered US. It is US. So Lin-Manuel is from Puerto Rico and he tells that story about founding father. There is this appreciation that is very important.
now next good deed that Eliza did, and she's continuing. Okay, can I show you what I'm proudest of? The orphanage. I established the first private orphanage in the New York City. I helped to raise hundreds of children. I get to see them growing up. In their eyes, I see you, Alexander. I see you every time. She, what I can infer from that, about the story, that Alexander was not just a founding father for the US. She is portrayed here as a father who wants to raise children, who wants to give his time not just to the country, but also to these new people, new young people. And orphanage is a one way to do that. And it is so humane way to do that, especially in times of wars when all of that, well, a lot of kids lose their parents. That's probably what happened. And in general, in situations when country just growing, just start being built, it's very hard. It's not well established cities with all amenities and everything safe, relatively safe. No, there were a lot of challenges for US at that time, and helping kids who lost their parents for some reason, somehow, hundreds of them. This probably the biggest good deed that Eliza did, in my opinion, as a mom and as a person who cannot stand other kids suffering, other kids get raised on a street by the street. It's terrible.
So that thing where she harbored Alexander into her life, he was an orphan and she took care of him. She became his wife, his partner, his mentor. Like, and then after he was gone, in Alexander's name, she establishes the orphanage and she raises those children. And that those words that she said, like, actually kind of hit me right through the heart. In their eyes, I see you. I know what it's like. You kind of, in every child, you see that person you love, and you love the child. And so she kind of everywhere sees him, and that's how she drives that inspiration. Like, I think it's really powerful. It's really, really beautiful. Yeah.
Yes,
Somehow.
she believed in those kids. She believed, while those kids had nothing. In that time, you need to have some help, some way to get educated, some way to learn how to read. Um, so that requires some help. Those kids had nothing, and but she knows, based on her experience and based on person she loved, that they just need very little help to become something. And that's what she did for them. And that's exactly, yeah, I agree, what she saw in all those kids, based on the story.
Yeah. And Eliza continues. And when my time is up, have I done enough? Will they tell my story? Oh, I can't wait to see you again. It's only a matter of time. Who lives, who dies, who tells our story? So, yeah, that main character is time. They only have really limited time to achieve things, to change things, to make life better for future generations.
So this song is not about Alexander Hamilton.
No.
And even not about his legacy. It's more about Eliza and how to make sure that whatever you do in life will have impact and continues even if you die.
I mean, in a sense, it is a tribute. So first we had all of those presidents, then Alan Burr, who shot him, paid tribute to Alexander, and at the end we had the two sisters who paid tribute to him. But the most tribute actually is, for me, Eliza's, who made the orphanage, who fought against slavery, who financed the George Washington Monument in Washington, D.C. It's all those stories intertwined and inspired by each other. Even though, like, Alexander inspired all those presidents, he also inspired Eliza, who actually did those amazing things. Yeah. Our life is very short, and we do run out of time. That's my final conclusion of the whole story.
No, time. Free time. That's something that we think we have, and it is free until we learn how to make it useful. For example, this podcast is sponsored by our free time. So sign in the bottom. Don't forget to hit the bell button and whatever else you need to do. You know, all that stuff. Yeah, we really appreciate it. And we will go and learn a little bit more about the history of this of those characters. Story we already know. It is inspiring. But if you know something about history that we missed or said wrong, let us know. Thank you very much, Kara, for your participation in this anniversary podcast, Line by Line, number 100. See you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. And now, the painting behind me is done by wonderful EM. Thank you, EM. And if you don't know the face, she painted
Yeah, can
me.
you recognize the face?
Spoiler alert. Can you recognize the face and like?
Yeah, let us know. Let us know.
Let us know who it is. Who it is?
Yes.
Even though I just told you.
Yeah, we will remove that. We will remove that from. So.
Yeah.